We're in February, we're really close to the new Season 9, but for now, another week, another set of Reddit questions, most upvoted of the week. Here we go. First question of the week is, why is Winston Bubble his best ability? I heard that Bubble is his most important and best ability in his kit, but I just can't grasp why Bubble is so good. What's its purpose in a team fight? What is contributing to the fight from just blocking damage? Is there something I'm missing? Does Bubble also do something else once you place it onto an enemy? I feel like you just place it down when you engage so you don't explode from all the damage. It's a great question, and you're not wrong. Winston Bubble is indeed his best ability, simply because you can choose where to put down this sort of shield. There's only a few shields in the game that tanks possess, like Ramontra's shield, Sigma's shield, and Rhine's that he can hold up at any time. So Winston's is a dome, a big bubble, and it blocks a big area. So a lot of times, well, your initial thought is like, you just put it down and block damage. While that is true, the best dive Winston players are the ones that know how to positionally put down the bubble to deny enemy space and sight lines, right? There are times where you have to use it for yourself and obviously stay in it and just like put it on the spot because you're about to get deleted. But Winston is all about finesse and strategy, which is why he's played a lot in Asia, top 500 ladder, and not so much in NA because there's less coordination. But let's give you an example here. Winston is supposed to slowly finesse his way into an area, and if, as a Winston, if you kind of take slow space and you dive and you jump, not necessarily on a person, but take a really strong angle, you can afterwards drop down, drop the bubble to block an enemy sightline, for example. As an Ana player myself, the best Winstons are the ones that, you know, if they dive, if you jump somebody individually as a Winston, that can work if they have no cooldown. So if a Winston solo dives me raw and I have both my sleep and my nade, I have a chance to fight back. But a good Winston will jump me if I either have no cooldowns, or he'll strategically jump somewhat close to me, put a bubble down to block my sight line to like my Orisa or my Sigma or whatever, and then do what he needs to do and then leap out. Winston is just finesse. That's the best way to put it, right? He's a distractor, he's a space taker, space creator, and that's the best use of his bubble. All right, next question is, how do people actually get kills with Genji? I wanted to learn Genji, but I am genuinely terrible with him to the point that I can't even play him in quick play, so I started to play him on an alt account. After ranking down from Plat 1 to Silver 1, I finally don't feel like I'm absolute dead weight in every game anymore, but since the people I play against are terrible as well, but I still struggle with Genji. I try to play him kind of similar to Tracer, close the distance, look for killable targets while poking and being annoying and going in for that target when I have my cooldowns. If I don't have them, stay alive and keep poking from an off angle. I do the exact same thing on Echo, who I don't usually play either. I rip through these lobbies with ease, but on Genji, I feel like I'm just throwing paper clips at my enemies. Blah, 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 blah. And once people start countering me, I can't do anything at all, but that's something I can figure out how to play around once I actually understood how to kill things. So TLDR, how do I kill things? So to answer the question outright, how do people get kills with Genji? A, you either punish someone who is severely out of position or mispositioned or isolated with no cooldowns, or they're already at low HP and you can close the distance on them. That's number one. Or number two, if you're really going from like 200 to 0 from someone at full health, you probably either have your blade or you really need to master the dash distance, right? There's a couple of scenarios to do that. If you are able to get within dash distance, a max range dash where you land right in front of them, you can get really close secondary fires or right clicks on PC. That's probably the best way to do it. Triple right click melee will be enough if you landed the dash onto them. Some Genjis know how to, if they're already close and they need the dash damage, they'll dash past them, but they'll aim a little bit lower on the ground, so they'll short dash, so they don't go the full distance and have too much distance between the target. They'll dash, aiming down so that they'll stop right in front of them or slightly right behind them, and if they're behind them, they turn around 180, triple right click headshots into a melee to finish them off, or if they're right in front, same idea, right click melee. That's like the hard way to do it, right? To take someone up from 200 to 0, but that is how you do it. But honestly, your explanation on what you do when you don't, have the distance where you poke with shurikens, that is all you're supposed to do. You do that to farm for blade. You're not supposed to just randomly shoot shurikens like your primary fire across the map and actually secure a kill. If you do, great. That means they just messed up. But for the most part, that's just a poke until you find the opportunity to do it. Genji is an opportunist. I wouldn't even say he's an outright like, He is like a dive here. He is a dive archetype, but he's not the greatest at solo diving, because if he doesn't convert the kill and he doesn't get the dash reset, he's actually just like, he's walking around with his pants down, right? So you either wait for your tank and wait for the opportunity, an opportunist and duelist to get in when somebody else is distracting them or taking attention away, or you're already up close to them, they're already low, and you can punish them with that full combo. But that does require a bit of mechanical prowess on Genji if you want to convert the kill by yourself. But if you play with a team that's kind of built around you, it makes it infinitely easier, because he's a feast or famine hero as well, right? If you get a kill, you get a reset, you get to keep going. Next question is, what is it with the end of round push? I'm gold for DPS and platinum for support if it helps at all. I find that I often come up against teams where we roll them for the round, and then in the last 30 seconds, they suddenly get it together and they're acting as if they could have won easily the whole time. Like, the last 30 seconds is crack for some players. It's annoying because you can feel like you're doing really well, and then suddenly it all went wrong and you have no idea why. Is there a reason teams can have such quick turnarounds like this? To clarify, I understand people will try and keep the point or payload in overtime, but I'm specifically talking about when a team A is rolling team B, but in the last 30 seconds that flips and now it's B rolling A. That's a good question. I think it comes down to three things. Number one, human psychology. Number two, some maybe last minute swaps, and number three, people getting a little complacent, which kind of ties a little bit to number one. And I guess number four would, if we want to tie number three, number one, number four would kind of be positional differences. You know how you were mentioning, like, even near the end, if someone's keeping the point, that does change like how the rest of the four players hold it. If like one person has to contest the cart, just a little bit of like miscommunication, and honestly, it might even come down to ultimate economy if I have to list 5 things. So 5 reasons. So let's go back to the beginning. Number one, human psychology. When time is winding down, there's a lot of pressure onto the team to make a last minute push, and then suddenly things can lock in and they're finally sitting up on their chair and they're focusing down, and that could be the reason why you're winning all game. And then the whole complacency thing, that was number 3, that ties into the opposite end where team A was getting rolled, it's a last fight, maybe they make that last minute swap, they're like, you know what, let's just do a last minute swap from Diva to Zarya and I'll get a bubble onto our Blade. And then the enemy team or your team that was rolling all game is get complacent because they're like, yeah, we win this game. We've been rolling the whole game. They're not really thinking anymore. They're getting caught out, and then boom, it can snowball into a complete 180 turnaround for the other team. What else was there? Ultimate economy as well. A lot of times, like, you may not realize, in the middle of matches, in a lot of games, people just like don't really pay too much attention to ultimate economy, right? People are using their ultimates whenever they feel like, or not use them at all. But if you actually know the game is going to end, that's when everybody starts like saving up everything and just dumping everything in the last moment, because there's actually like, you either use it or not. Like, people are trying to time their ultimates the whole game and they probably mistime it, but at the end it's like, fuck it, let's just throw everything out. And that, more often than enough, is enough to overwhelm you at the last moment, and that could potentially snowball that team that was losing and dumps all their ultimates to actually turn around the game. So I think it's a mix of all that, sprinkled in with probably some staggering and some swaps. Ooh, an interesting question this time from a high rank player. Hi, I'm around rank 300, peak rank 67 on tank on my main account and GM on DPS as well, but I can't seem to win in diamond on my alternate account. I've gone like 2-8 on my alt, and I haven't played on it since Overwatch 1, and I just can't seem to win consistently in diamond lobbies. I didn't believe in it till now, but this elo hell thing may be real, or the sample size needed in Overwatch 2 in order to calibrate rank is just way too high. Just me or anyone else feel this way too? I think the sample size is too small if I had to answer it. 2-8 is just a set of 10 games. You can easily go 2-8 and then go 8-2 in the next set. 10 games is not enough. Diamond players are generally, they're like in the top like 10 percentile, right? Obviously, if you're a GM DPS as well and high rank player, I would assume that when you play at a certain tempo for a long time, you kind of go on autopilot, and there's a lot of expectations that you already know that your opponents may do. But in Diamond, there's a mix and match and a bit of a question mark variable where it's just like, oh, like these players are like pretty good, but like maybe some of their decision making is like holding them back. But you as that GM player that's just running in there, you think like, you expect the opponent to do one thing, but they're doing something that's a bit suboptimal, but still pretty good. So I would say the only thing holding you back is not necessarily elo hell, but your skill in adaptability. That's something that a lot of players don't mention a lot in Overwatch skill. They'll be like, yeah, your positioning, your mechanics, your movement, but adaptability, being able to adjust to your opponents as the game goes on the fly. right? There's a lot of players who are like one-dimensional in the play style, where it's like they're Genji or they're a Tracer and they always dive this person, they always blink here, they always go here. There's no variability in their play style. They don't read what the opponent is doing and they just fixate on what they're used to. So you just need a bit more time to adapt, or, you know, train that skill a little bit more. Actually think for a little bit rather than running on autopilot. And obviously if you're a high ranked player, you should be able to, you know, pick out some of the mistakes they're making. It may not be the obvious ones that, you know, GM players make, those mistakes, but the diamond players make a different set of mistakes that you just need to realize. So just give it some time. If you're a good player, you'll be able to eventually calibrate yourself. Okay, in the highest elo like GM plus lobbies, which has more potential, Wrecking Ball or Doomfist? Obviously, I'm not GM, which is why I'm asking this question, but I feel like both Ball and Doom fill similar niches and their playstyles are very similar. Difference being Doomfist needs more resources, but is more lethal, and Ball is more independent, but is basically unkillable without counters. For those who play in high elo, what do you think about these two heroes? Do you think both these heroes are interchangeable, or do you think one is better overall, or both actually fill a different niche? As someone who's played against some of the best Dooms and Balls in the world, I would 100% certainty say Doomfist is deadlier at this current state of time with the way it goes. Doom actually is incredibly annoying. His movement is super quick. If he's cycling the cooldowns, somebody can accidentally shoot his empowered punch and he gets a second punch, which does hard stun, right? Ball doesn't have a hard stun. It's just boops, which is knockbacks, and the pile drive, which is just a knock up, but you're still able to use your abilities. A good Doom can chase you down and can escape as needed. And I genuinely think Doom is like a pretty solid hero, above B tier, close to A tier, despite what all the Doomfist players say. Obviously, Doom has his bugs and issues for the Doom 1 tricks, but Doom is genuinely like a pretty good tank, in my opinion. And Ball is kind of like way below average at its current state. So I will say the best Balls in the world do have a high mastery of his like double, triple boot mechanics and can be an absolute menace. But there's more Doomfist players simply because he is a better hero at this time. Who should stay on the cart on overtime when playing full dive comp? I just had a game where the comp is D.Va, Genji, Tracer, Ana, Zen. And in overtime, the enemy tanks swap to Winston and jump to the cart. I, as an Ana, instinctively go back to avoid his jump melee combo. The Zen does the same. Our Genji dashed up and bladed. The D.Va chased the Pharah. Tracer blinked in. We ended up C9ing. Am I supposed to stay on the cart and tank the damage? I'm not sure what to do. That seems like a full, team macro issue. If you're an Ana player, and as an Ana player myself, I played lots of dive over the last 7 years, you are not supposed to be on the cart in that situation. Depending on the map as well, but generally speaking, the best people to push the cart in a full dive like there is probably Tracer or sometimes D.Va, depending on the map. And the reason being, especially in overtime, is because if you're like, in overtime pushing the enemy team is coming back, you as an Ana and especially Zen need to be on a strong positional angle to at least have line of sight of the cart there, and you punish the first person who has to touch. Because in overtime specifically, in that comp, the enemy team needs to contest the cart or else it'll stop. So you as an Ana, if you're on there by yourself, you are so vulnerable to just getting hit by random AoE damage. You will be hit if you're there. But if you're in a stronger high ground angle with line of sight of the team fight and the cart, you're already in a way better position where someone like the Winston, you mentioned the enemy team had a Winston, they're not going to be able to jump you unless they already at the cart and they take a second jump to you. You're always going to be 2 jumps away. Same with your Zen. It should have been Tracer in that instance because Tracer can actually survive on the cart. You have a Zenyatta, keep the orb on the Tracer from that angle as well, and the Tracer gets 10 HP per second healing from the payload because you're on attack as well. So Tracer, probably the best in that situation. Maybe D.Va, depending on the map, like I mentioned earlier, because she can fly up and down. But you said they had a Pharah, so D.Va would not have been great on the cart because she can go contest the Pharah and eat some of the stuff, while the Tracer can blink in and out and dart around the cart, being really annoying, especially if you have a great angle on them. So yeah, no Ana on the cart in that scenario. In different compositions, there will be times where you as the Ana or the Zen should be on the cart because you have a long sight line, perhaps potentially on King's Row second, for example. It's overtime, you're pushing. Your other team is actually taking position deep near the end of second as the enemy team is coming back, and you have a strong sight line on the cart. But again, you should probably eventually back out, and in that scenario even Zen could push it. If he had Transcendence, he could be the only one on cart, while you as an Ana take a stronger high ground position. There's a lot of different ways to sort of set it up, but in that scenario you explained, Tracer, and most of the time it is Tracer. How do I deal with Hanzo as a DPS player? As a ball main, I actually don't think about Hanzo at all. I just do the normal ball stuff and he dies, no big deal. However, this season I've been playing DPS and I don't really get how I'm supposed to deal with this hero. If I play a typical hit scan, I have to burst through his healing while he can instantly kill me in one shot. If I play a dive DPS, he might be pressured, but at any point he can win the fight in one shot. If I play a brawl DPS, he can fill me with damage as I try to close the gap while also being able to kill me in one shot. So seems like the only good answer is Widow, but I don't really want to have to learn her. Hanzo is a pretty good duelist because of that insta-kill potential, like a straight-up 1v1 duelist because he can instantly pop you, or at least do the 120 body shot if he lands just an arrow in your stomach and then pops a storm arrow. So generally speaking, as a DPS hero, you don't have to like mark him and take him in an exact 1v1. You can actually wait till he's looking at somebody else. Hanzo can only shoot one person at a time, right? And sometimes the best opportunity to kill him is when he's not looking at you, he's distracted, or you just have to duel him back, play Hanzo against him, or you just, have higher other priorities. A lot of times it is like the dive tank like Ball or like Winston's job to kind of like, at least drop a bubble or slam or annoy him so he can't, do whatever he needs to do. But he is a little threatening and menacing, so that's why he's not necessarily your job in a lot of cases. Yeah, you have to kind of like, if you're gonna play like a flanking DPS hero, you kind of have to take like side angles and make him turn around and like have to recalibrate his aim a little bit and whittle him down before you fully commit. But yeah, don't ever just like go up in his face in a 1v1 because that's his strengths, right? With the storm arrow up close or really long range with the one shots. How do you deal with soldiers spamming you on Junker Queen? You would think that shooting the tank all game is bad play, but this guy kept shooting at my head all game from the high ground. I couldn't land my knife on him and he would just sprint away whenever I got close to him. Felt like I couldn't do anything this game because of how much constant damage I was taking. So this question kind of depends on the map you're playing, but from the way it sounds, it could have just been a positional error on your part where you're kind of just standing in the open and letting the soldier contest you and shoot you the whole time. A lot of times, if you can't land that knife and not contest him, there's like a couple of options depending on the map you're playing. Number one, you actually fully ignore him and sprint past him with a bit of cover. Like, for example, if the soldiers, you're on defense playing Junker Queen on King's Row and the soldiers perched up on the high ground, you just shout, go past him, past the statue so he can't get an angle on you, and you kill the rest of their team. Or the other option is, yes, you try to throw a knife at him and try to pull him down. And if you miss that and he's still a problem, somebody else is supposed to take care of him. Or depending on the map, you're actually supposed to go high ground and flush him out yourself first before doing anything else. It's too vague of a question. But in a lot of cases, when I see questions like this on OverwatchUniversity, a lot of times it's just positional errors for the most part, like taking natural cover and spacing and, only hard engaging when you have your shout is probably the best way to play in a lot of Junker Queen matchups. But without a specific VOD, it's just very general advice. All right, last two questions. Most upvoted of the week is Illari even worth trying to make work? I know you guys will say, if you like playing her, then play her. I get that. But realistically, if your aim is bad, Illari heals already aren't as effective due to resource and range. If pylon breaks, then half your value is gone. Illari is tricky because you have a very particular range. I've learned what matchups work for me and what don't. Namely, if we have a Winston or Doom, then Illari is a straight up no-go. Illari was busted on release for top level players because obviously they can hit the shots, but now it's a different meta. Both sources of her healing have been nerfed. I don't think she was that strong for most players to begin with. Is it even worth trying to play her in ranked? What situations does she work in? I feel like she plays well with Sigma. True, I am going to say what you thought I was going to say. If you like playing her, then play her. Yes, true. In what situations does she work with? She plays well with Sigma. Yes, also true. But this is like a very hit scanny hero where the healing with pylon and beam isn't as great as it used to be, so she really is like a hit or miss hero depending on your aim. And I like to really answer your question where is it worth to make it work? If your aim sucks, you probably will not get as much value on her, to be completely honest, if your aim sucks. But the only way to get better aim on her is to play her, right? Sometimes you have to take the L's on the chin like your ex-wife. No, I'm just cut that out. So take the L's on the chin and practice with her. The only way to get better with your shots is to play the Illari, right? She shines in poke comps, and Sigma's a great one. Replace her where you would play maybe a Zen or a Kiriko in a lot of poke compositions, and just keep practicing her. But yeah, I would say she was on the lower popularity scale, especially in the high ranks, because other heroes like Kiriko kind of replace her right now. But she can work if you play enough of her in practice. Final question is, how is Illari considered weak? Another Illari question. Maybe it's because I'm on console and the meta is different or something, but Illari is very much dominant at higher ranks. The amount of pressure she applies to the enemy team is better than any other support except for maybe Zen. I've heard people say that KarQ outclasses her. I agree. But KarQ's damage is very inconsistent at range, and she's only really threatening at close range. I know Illari doesn't bring utility like anti or cleanse, but those abilities aren't very impactful in poke versus poke comps, which appears to be the meta comp from my experience on most maps, on mid GM, on console, though I guess this is because most players are using Zim. So Illari not as great on PC because KarQ players on PC are a lot better, and the skill gap between hit scan and projectile is less prominent here. But honestly, I wasn't really sure how bad the zimming problem was on console, but I asked people in my community the other day, and it's like a really big problem. High elo console is basically all Zim players using mouse and keyboard. So if you're just gonna mouse and keyboard, then with aim assist, then Illari just seems like a no-brainer. So Illari probably is not weak on console, and she's not even that weak on PC. She's just outclassed by Kiri there, and probably less outclassed on console, because why play a projectile if you're zimming? Just play Illari with aim assist and just pop off. That's probably the easiest answer to give you, to be honest with you. So yeah. Okay, and that's it for the Reddit questions of the week. See you guys for season 9 next week. Bye.